Hi everyone, my name is Jason Bays. I'm the creator of FosterCare.Team. Before we get into this, I want to ask you a few questions. And if you're just becoming licensed as a foster parent, you're going to say yes to these at some point of your experience as foster parents. But if you are an existing foster parent or you've been one in the past, you're going to be able to relate to these. So as a foster parent, have you ever wanted a voice? Have you ever needed more support? Have you ever wondered if your caseworker actually got the message that you left them? How about, have you ever needed to advocate for your foster child or try to document an event, wish there was a better way to do it? Have you tried to improve child behavior? Have you ever felt inadequate, stressed, or overwhelmed? If you're an existing foster parent, you've felt all or some of these emotions at some point. If you're not a foster parent, you're going to, these are things it's just part that comes with the territory. It's just something that you're going to experience. The difference is there's a solution to this. I mean, it's not going to eliminate these totally, but it really goes a long way to addressing them if you use it, and that's FosterCare.Team. This is a product that your agency is giving you to be able to use to help improve communication and collaboration. So let me give you, let's talk about the agenda here. First, I want you to understand how we got started. We're talking about simplifying communication. I want you to understand the team concept. We'll do a software demo, talk about keys to success, and then at the very end, we'll show you how to set your phone up so that you can use everything on your phone. So first, how we got started. This is a picture of my wife and I with our 4 foster children. And this is a picture from adoption day. So the software that you're going to use is software that we created for use with our foster care team when we were getting started. My wife is a behavior specialist. She's she's a special education teacher, and I write custom software for a living. And we realized as part of our process as being a foster parent, we needed better communication and documentation tools. We were asked to document things. We were asked to take great notes. We were asked to do a daily journal. We were not given a tool to use to do that. So we were frustrated with the tools that were out there. None of them really worked well. There were drawbacks to everything. Nothing seemed to be designed for the foster care world. So my wife said to me one day, "Hey, don't you solve problems like this for a living? Can't you just fix this?" So that's what got us started down this road. And initially, our goal was just to do something for our team. But the tool got so robust that our worker asked if other foster families could begin using it. And that's kind of how we got our start. It's important to know that everything that we do is HIPAA compliant, or everything's locked down with banking level encryption, and the application is going to be able to run on any device that has internet access. So it's a responsive system. You're not going to find it in the App Store, but it will run on your phone, and we get into that at the end of our training. So I want to talk to you first about why foster parents are frustrated. And again, if you're an existing foster parent, you've probably felt this. These are actually the top 5 reasons too that foster parents give for quitting. So the biggest one is lack of agency support, which is frustrating for an agency because they absolutely want to be able to support their foster parents. Next is poor communication, then lack of training, then overall stress. 85% of foster parents say that they struggle with grief and loss. So all of these things can be addressed using our platform. You actually have to use it though. You're not going to see any benefit from it if you don't use it. And I want, for foster parents, when we first started, I thought it was my caseworker's job to support me. I thought it all started with them, and it was their job to support me. And that's not how it works. It actually starts with you as a foster parent. You've got to be able to communicate to them what your needs are, what your issues are, what your children are struggling with, because if you don't, they have no idea how to support you. But if you give them that information, you give them a peek into the window of your home and into the lives of these foster children, now they recognize the need, now they can provide support. But it starts with you. Don't complain that your worker's not supporting you if you're not documenting things for them. Now, if you are documenting things and you don't feel like you're getting support, well, now you've got reason to be concerned, and you can voice your concerns to the worker or their supervisor. But this tool is going to give you a voice. It's going to give you a significant amount of power and influence, and give you a tool to help meet the needs of the foster children. It's a great advocacy tool. So let's talk about communication first. when we wanted to communicate with our worker, we had way too many communication channels. If I wanted to give our worker information, these are the places that I could put it, okay? We could put it in their office phone, their office voicemail, their cell phone, their cell voicemail, fax, and email, and attachments in the email, a text message, a Facebook message, in person, or secondhand through the licensor who was just at our house. But it's a little worse than this because you have agencies that are telling their foster parents, hey, you've got to document stuff. But then they don't give them a tool to use. So the foster parents, especially the younger crowd, the little more tech-savvy crowd, they're going to say, well, we're going to use Google Docs or OneNote or Evernote or some journaling app on your phone. And all of these can have HIPAA concerns and encryption concerns, security concerns. It's multiple system that a worker has to learn and use. And information is scattered. You could have a topic that maybe someone wrote an email about, someone else left a voicemail about, and someone else left a text message about. It's all about the same thing, but it's scattered in multiple communication channels. So it's easy to see why caseworkers get frustrated. Now, it's a little worse than that, actually. This is another frustrated caseworker, and this caseworker is realizing that information is not just coming from multiple sources, but it's coming from multiple people who each use multiple sources. So your caseworker is working with your family, but they've got a number of other children and families that they're working with as well. And then you take that and double it, because typically they're working with birth parents on the other side. So you have all these different cases, all these different people with information in all these different buckets. And it's real easy to see how it's possible for things to slip through the cracks. And when it does slip through the cracks, then you have people making decisions with incomplete information. And that can affect the well-being of the child. So what we did is we said, well, what if instead of trying to put all this information into one person, what if we could put it into one system and organize it into highly efficient teams? And that one system could then update the one person. And that simplifies things tremendously for your worker. It organizes them into teams so things aren't lost. They're either searched for, easy to find. And the worker can make requests of the system. So they don't just get information, they can comment in it too. People can get notified, they can respond. All of that is documented and the worker's notified. So this is more than just a way to put information to your worker. Now there's also a teaming concept here. In Michigan, we call this My Teams, which is where we're from. But the concept basically says the caseworker doesn't always have to be in the lead, but they've always got to be in the loop. They've got to know what's going on, but there should be other people on the team that can help provide leadership. So you may have a case where a foster parent is struggling, having an issue with something, and they post it to their team and the team gets notified. And the people that are able to help provide guidance or support or interventions, they can respond, that's documented, the foster parent's notified, and everything happens within the team, and the worker is aware of all this because they can see that it's going on. One of the biggest takeaways I want you to understand from this is this tool is not just a way for you to communicate to your worker. This is a multi-directional collaboration platform where everyone on the team can collaborate with everybody else on the team. And you can see everybody's comments and their feedback, and it really helps you make well-informed decisions. Let's talk about teams, since teams are at the core of what we do. First of all, your caseworker is going to determine who's on the team. This is an example of how our team was set up when we first got started. But the members here are entirely up to your caseworker. If you want other people included on the team, go ahead and talk to your worker about that. Data is locked down and confined to a team. Teams are private and hidden, and they're accessible by invitation only. So the only people that are going to be able to have access to your team and their information are the people that got invited to join your team, and you'll be able to see who those are. So this is a typical, what we'll call a child-centric team. But we also have things in our teams in our platform that are role-based teams that you may have access to. So many agencies will have a team for all their foster parents. And they'll use that team to provide training materials, a calendar event, resources, and things like that for you. Now, our tool has a number of different modules that are available to the caseworkers when they create the teams. Your teams may have some of these, they may have all of them. It really depends on how the worker sets your team up. We're going to talk about the journal entry one in detail. We'll get into some of these other ones briefly, but just to keep this demo short, and most of this stuff is pretty self-explanatory, I'm not going to get into all of them. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to first do a system tour, and we're going to show you things from the foster parent side. But then we're also going to show you how things work from the caseworker side, because I want you to see what the system looks like on their side as well. So hold on for just a second. Let me, because I need to be able to switch some things around, and I'll be right back with you. Okay, here we are at FosterCare.Team on our homepage, and I'm going to log in as Tammy Smalley. And Tammy is if I click it, Tammy is a sample foster parent. By the way, you log in using your email address. Maybe I should rewind just a second. You're going to receive an email notification to become a member of the team. And that's what you want to use to sign in. Don't register because you would have to pay to do that. We don't want you to do that. This is going to be free for you. Just wait for that email from your worker, and that'll invite you to join the team. And you join using an email address and a password that you get to set up. So when a foster parent first logs in, they end up at this all team activity page. And it's going to show you all the activity for all of the teams that this foster parent has access to. Now, one of the most important things for a foster parent is going to be the ability to create a journal entry. It's to document what's happening in your home. And you'll have something like this for each of your teams that you've got access to. This is a calendar. And the days that are blue are days that already have journal entries in them. And these obviously do not. So if you want to create a new journal entry, all you have to do is click on the day. It's going to pop up. You can override this title if you want to. And the body is going to be where you document what happened. You can, this is, some people will put just, today was a great day, and they just leave it at that. Other people will document, here's what we did with the kids today. If there's any issues that you had, this is where this is going to go. Some of the things that we would do, we would sometimes document what the kids were saying as they were playing, because they play out what happened to them. They play out their trauma. So what's they're playing dolls or Legos or with cars, whatever scene or scenario that they're playing out, we would script it. And what that did is it would give insights to the counselors that were working with our kids into what happened to them. So we're actually documenting, we're building that child's trauma narrative. This is a gold mine for anyone that's working with your children. And it's not something that happens that you're going to get this big revelation instantly on the first day, but a pattern starts to develop over time. Anyone that our children interacted with, so they, hey, we went to this person's house, we spent the night at this person's house, we just put that in there because it helps the caseworker understand who the different people are that play a role in the life of this child. Now, some of the things that we've seen from this, we've seen our counselors, a couple of things. First of all, with our counselors, it really sped up our counseling sessions. We didn't have to meet with a counselor and spend 15-20 minutes talking about what happened last week because they already knew, they read it. The second, so it makes things more efficient. They would just come get the kids, and counseling was able to begin. You also don't have to talk in code with a child in front of you trying to explain how things went the previous week. I mean, the communication is crystal clear. But one of the biggest things that we saw is our therapists would change their therapy sessions depending on what happened in the previous week. So they may have been planning doing a session on one thing, but based on the journaling and the documentation that we were doing, they realized, oh, we got another issue to address. So they could do research on that. And when we got there for the therapy session, they were fully prepared to meet that child exactly where they were and address whatever need that they were dealing with. And it all came from this journal. So the journaling is very important. Now, when your caseworkers set these up, they may have these emotions. We'll show you how these work in the agency dashboard as well. But basically, this is just asking you, overall for your foster family, how was today? Really good, not good. If it's horrible, we're going to send a special notification out to certain people on your team to let them know. We don't expect you guys to have perfect foster homes. There are rough days. There should be rough days. We're working with broken families, broken kids here. So this is not, this is, just be real when you do this, I guess is the best way to say this. If you have attachments, go ahead and add them here. We would do notes from school, report cards, sometimes photos, things like that. If there was an abuse disclosure that you documented up above, check this. That's going to send a special notification out to your team and to the supervisor of your worker to let them know that there was an abuse disclosure. It actually does something else. So it's going to create a task in our task management system, and it signs it to the worker, and it asks the worker to follow up with you regarding this task. And the supervisors have visibility to that as well. Next, if there was a parent visit today, go ahead and check that. You'll see how this comes into play a little bit later when we look at behaviors. And now we've got the kids that are on the team. So if I open up Jasmine here, um, this is what it's going to look like the first time you guys go to create journal entries. This is where you're going to, or I'm sorry, when you go to track behaviors, this is where you're going to enter your behaviors. And we're looking for something very short here. You don't want to say fighting on the bus, just fighting or aggression. If you want to document that something happened on the bus so you can keep track of that down the road, every place you document bus issues, then put bus. I would, if I was going to do it, I would do it two different, like this. I would say it's fighting, and I would say that it's bus. And what that's going to allow us to do is down the road, you can pull all of your files, discussions, notes, photos, anything related to either fighting or bus, and pull them into one place. So we track these behaviors all over the place in the system, not just in the journal entry. Now, some of your children are going to have suggested behaviors, and they'll do this once you enter behaviors. So what it does is it remembers the behaviors that you've already entered in. So obviously there were none for Jasmine. We've got a bunch here for Christy. We've got some more for Craig. And by the way, all this stuff is fake names, fake people, everything like that. You can see that Craig's list is very different than Christy's. So we keep track of these things. If you want to use one that's already been set up, that you've already used, we can say Christy was bossy, she was anxious, she was defiant. That just helps us be consistent. You can see all the children have these emotions as well. So if Christy had a horrible day or just maybe not so good a day, you can flag that as well. And all this gets tracked. You can go through and do that for all the kids. By the way, the default here is for the kiddos is a good day. Just saves you an extra click there. And then finally, yours may have this, it may not. It all depends on how the worker sets it up. But this question is really important. How you feeling? And again, you got to be real, right? If you are doing this every single day, something's not right. That's just not realistic. You're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days. You have just so-so days. Just be real. That's really the key thing here. Don't exaggerate. Don't lie. Obviously, don't lie about stuff. Document things really well. Give context to what you're documenting. So if someone wasn't there, they can understand what someone meant when they said it, given the context of it. But with these emotions, just be real. This is really going to help your foster parent, it's really going to help your worker and the supervisor just have their pulse on how you're doing as a foster parent and making sure that you've got everything that you need to be successful. And if it was a rough day, I'm going to say it was a rough day. We've had those. Now, this next box is important. This is, if you check this, it's going to flag this post as an emergency. And we've got this box all over our system in a number of different places where you input things. And what this will do is it will send an immediate text message notification out to your worker, because your worker should tell you, don't call me, don't email me, and don't text me. Put everything in FosterCare.Team. Because if you email me and you call me and you text me, then all of a sudden we're getting information outside of the system now. You can't tell if I've received it. And it's harder for the worker because now they've got to move it into another system. Well, typically what your workers are told to do is just tell you, thanks for that, but put it in the system and I'll get it there. So put everything in the system, even if there's an emergency, document it here and flag this as an emergency, and a notification will go out. The problem is if you call your worker with an emergency, they've got to do something with that information. So they're going to have to document it somewhere, and they're going to do it in their words. And that might be a little bit different than how you intended it to be documented. So document it in your words, flag this as an emergency, and your team will be notified of that. Next, the access privileges. By default, your entire team is going to have access to everything that's posted. That's really what we want in a collaboration system. But you can change that. You can post it to your team members and your blind users, or you can make it custom. Let's talk about blind users for a minute. A blind user is someone that is set up by your caseworker, and you'll be able to see who these people are if they're on your team. But a blind user is someone who, by definition, they're blind. They can't see anything in the system. But if you post something and you enable it to be viewed by blind users, you set that access privilege to include the blind users, then they're going to be able to see it. So you may have blind users, like for example, for our team, the teachers at school are blind users on our team. You may have birth parents that are blind users on your team, and you might want to post photos and share those with everybody, including the blind users, so that the birth parents have a chance to see the photos. And if you set this to custom, then you can type in the names of the people here on your team that are going to be able to see this. So I might say, well, I want Bryce to be able to see this. Oops, or let's do it this way. So that still doesn't work. Looking at total entries, so this could include files and photos and other things. How are the foster parents doing, right? Jordan Brown, she is struggling. Sarah's kind of so-so. My other two are doing okay. So if I'm a supervisor looking at this, I'm asking the question, what's going on in Jordan's house? What can we do to help her? What are the needs that she has that we're not meeting? Because obviously she's struggling. We got to make sure that we get some support and intervention there. So the supervisors have visibility. In fact, the agency director, if they were to log in and look at this agency wide, they would be able to see this. A score like this is important for our foster parents to know. A score like this does not mean you're a bad foster parent. This just means you might have some hard kids, or maybe you need different interventions or different solutions to help you be the foster parent. This is not a measurement of how good you are as a foster parent. Okay? This is going to be a tool to make sure that you get what you need to be successful, because your agency wants you to be an incredibly successful foster parent, that these children will either be reunited with a birth family or be adopted out, and you had a good enough experience, felt supported enough that you're willing to remain a foster parent and accept more foster children. So this is a metric and a tool that the leadership within the agency can use to make sure that supports and interventions are being provided for all their foster parents. And again, overall, how was your foster home? This is a little bit different than you personally. Your foster home might be doing just fine, but you might really be struggling. So that's kind of the distinction between the two. If there were some other tasks, they would be visible here. Now, I want to show you one other thing here, and you can get at this by clicking on the child's picture. Now, I'm doing this from the dashboard. You guys might do this because you're not going to have access to the dashboard, but on the profile page, in fact, I can just jump there right now. We've got the kids. You can click on their name or their picture, and it's going to do the same thing. It's going to bring you to what we call the child-centric team. So the thing at the top here, this is looking at all your track behaviors throughout all time. And if you click on some of these, it's going to pull everything that was related to that particular behavior. So if I click on lying, for example, I'm going to hold the control key down when I do it, so it opens it up in a new tab. So it's going to pull, in this case, it was just journal entries. But I could have files, I could have notes, I could have photos, I could have tasks. There could be many different things that are related to lying. So whatever I was to click on that behavior, it pulls all of those things right there. If I want to filter them, I can just click on these and filter them, show me all the ones that are tied to photos, the ones tied to journals, and it filters those. So if you have if you have counselors or behavior specialists that are working with your kids, you're trying to resolve a certain issue, that's a really, really powerful tool to be able to pull all that information together. But again, you got to use it, right? You got to track those behaviors. Next is this emotions calendar, and this is where data starts to tell a story. And I got to skip back here to where I've got a bunch of sample data for this team. Okay, so here we go. So what you see here, obviously it's laid out in the calendar format. I've got the emotions for this foster child on the different day. I can see the behaviors that we're tracking on that day, and I can see when the parent visits were. And what you're hoping for here, and obviously when children go back to see their birth family, you may have behaviors that spike and then come back down, or maybe they don't spike. Maybe things progress just fine, and that's great, but it gives you perspective. You're able to see this. If there's abuse disclosures, you can see those as well. So I can see here we had a parent visit on this particular day, and then the next day next 3 days were really, really rough. A couple of abuse disclosures there. If you actually want to see what the journals are for a particular day, all you have to do is just click on their picture, and it's going to pull the journal right back up. You can see that. I'm noticing on this one that this foster parent did an at mention, so I'll have to show you how to do those. There's some comments on this one. So this is where data starts to come together and tell a story. So let me show you how to do an at mention real quick. Let's jump to the discussions. We'll talk about bus issues. And if I do the at sign and then start to type someone's name. So I'm gonna start type Ryan. And I put in a comment here, whatever this is. When I post this, it's going to send a special notification to Ryan that says you were mentioned in a post. So that elevates the attention for Ryan. So instead of him just getting something that says, hey, there's been a new post, he gets something that says you were mentioned in a post. Well, now I definitely need to look at it, right? And it's more of a priority for him. So typically he's going to get to it sooner. So anytime you're not getting the type of response that you wanted to get, do an at mention, and it will help. It will help you get those responses. So that's kind of let me show you one other thing real quick. Let me jump into settings and go to notifications. You can set the notifications for the different teams. So these are all the teams that this worker has access to. You can get your email notification. The site has got its own messaging system up here where you can send direct messages. So you can get notifications that way. You can get notifications via text message if you want to. You can change the frequency of these notifications and when you get them. So, this is, I never want a journal entry notification because I know I'm going to log in every day. And one of the things I do in the morning is I check all my journal entries. So don't send me those, or send it to me instantly. So you've got the ability to customize that. What I would recommend is just leave these the way they are by default. Which is instantly on everything. And if it becomes overwhelming, then change it. But don't assume it's going to become overwhelming. Just especially if you're the one as a foster parent creating most of this content. Having things respond instantly also help shrink that cycle. So someone can post a comment, you can get a notice about it, you can respond quickly. It just allows everything to process much faster. So that's kind of a quick tour of what things look like for your agency. Let me give you, let me pause this just a second, and I want to give you a few tips to make sure that you're successful. Okay, so we are back. We are done with our system tour. So let me give you those keys to success. First of all, set a time to do a journal. If you are busy, if you don't have foster children, you will be busy. Trust me. You'll probably be exhausted at times. I know with our children, we got them April 30th. We did not have a night where one of them wasn't up in our room overnight with nightmares or some issue. We were interrupted every night until November 7th. And we know that because we documented everything. But we understand you're going to be tired. It is so important to be able to share with your team what's going on in your home. Make time to do a journal. You may receive reminders from the system to do journals as well. That depends if your worker sets them up. But schedule a time to do it. If you don't, you're less likely to do this. And there's a lot of value that your foster children and you won't receive if you're not actually journaling. So for my wife and I, we would do it in the evening after the kids went to bed. We would just spend some time and just document how things went. And again, it's highly therapeutic, so it really benefits you to do this as well. Next, track emotions and behaviors. It is great for therapists to be able to see progress being made. We thought it was amazing to be able to look back, 4 or 5 months or 6 months and go, you know what, we used to deal with that every single day, but we haven't dealt with that in 2 months. You don't realize it because it's usually a slow transition, but if you look back, all of a sudden you see all these other things. So it's very helpful to track progress and to track how successful different interventions are if you do actually track the emotions and the behavior. And obviously it gives visibility to your worker and the supervisor to how everybody's doing. Next, make sure that you replace your emails, your texts, your phone calls to your worker and just put all that information in FosterCare.Team. We don't want it scattered. We don't want this information in all these other places. So put it all within FosterCare.Team. And then finally, if you're not getting the attention that you want, make sure that you use the at mentions. This is going to give special notifications to whoever is receiving these. So hopefully you find these tips helpful. And finally, if you have any support questions, just hit us up at support@FosterCare.Team. or go to our website. There's a contact form there as well. Don't talk to your worker about the issues if you have any, because they're going to just tell you to call us anyways. We do the support. That's something that your agency and your worker doesn't need to be involved in. And if there are any issues with the product, we want to make sure that we are aware of those. Maybe something's not intuitive as it needs to be. So with you guys talking directly to us, that helps us make sure that we provide a tool that's very intuitive and useful for you. So let me close with this. First of all, thanks for being a foster parent. What you're doing is incredibly important. This tool is going to help make sure that you get the most support that you can for you and for your foster children, and that everything is documented. And then next, right at the tail end of this, you should see some links that will show you how to set your phone up so that you can use your phone or the website, either one, but we'll show you how to create those jump points on the back of your phone to be able to create journals and to log in and do some different things like that. So stay tuned for that, and thanks again for being a foster parent.